Hey, I'm Jamie with Guitarist Magazine.
Hi, I'm Richard.
So, over the years, one of the most familiar landmarks on the map of guitar has been the Les Paul Studio. It's been going since 1983. It was originally made with an older body before Gibson relented very shortly afterwards and went to the classic Les Paul pairing of mahogany body and maple cap. And it's pretty much been going ever since. And today we've got the newest version of this.
The one,
which has come out in 4 different finishes. There's a sort of blueberry burst colour. There's this cherry sunburst there, and there's the classic wine red,
and the ebony. Yeah.
Which, if you think of a Les Paul Studio in your mind, it's probably the wine red.
I generally do see it in wine red. Yeah.
So it's got some slight tweaks and updates, and which make it probably more versatile than it's ever been. So should we have a little look at these the quirks and features, so to speak?
Yeah. The most obvious thing that's a departure from the previous studios is the coil tap, and I mentioned coil tap instead of coil split, and people do mix them up, and to be fair, it's a push-pull pot, and when you pull the push-pull pot out, the sound gets thinner, though this has been done in such a way that I think they unbalance the coils, don't they? And there's a capacitor, and it's all been carefully tuned. I mean, if I just go full fat, going through the JTM 45 reissue again. Now. So it takes on a bit more of a Telecaster type quality, I suppose, doesn't it? Or it could even be a Strat. So I can see why that would be a desirable feature if you're in the studio and don't want to lug a boot full of guitars.
So while we're on the subject, these are quite decent pickups actually. They're Burstbucker Pros, aren't they?
Yeah, they're the top of the line, aren't they?
Yeah, they're certainly got plenty of growl and bite to them, haven't they? Do you want to give us another little
yeah, and I was thinking what might be good. I guess people might be curious to hear how it works on the neck pickup. So I should say that's the full fat humbucker. And then if I
and like you were saying, it feels like it's not dropping back just to one coil. It's leaving a little bit of one coil in play, and the hum cancelling
and the capacitor that they've put in that's been chosen carefully. And you haven't got this massive volume drop that you often get. I mean, I know that realistically speaking, you'll get a volume drop normally, but these don't seem to do that.
So basically what you get there is a bit of tonal light and shade. If you won't want to go in with both feet, you can just pull up the push-pull and get a slightly more single coil-like sound, or maybe just a slightly airier,
thinned out. Yeah. I mean, it might be useful on the neck pickup particularly. People often express a bit of an issue with that.
Yeah.
So
So elsewhere on the new for 2024 Les Paul Studio, one thing you may notice is got binding on the neck. So Les Paul Studios, the idea behind them has always been that they offer you all of the essential elements of a Les Paul, but without any of the kind of cost heightening bells and buzzers, basically. So
because I guess that takes a lot longer.
Yeah. So like no binding on the body, because somebody would have to route out a binding channel and then meticulously glue the binding on a full-on.
It'd be sat there going
body
off and drying, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and you can just actually see the edge of the maple cap on this one, which is quite nice. It's a weight relieved body as well, isn't it? So
yes, I wasn't able to find anything specific about how that is done. I know there were the Swiss cheese ones, and I know there are the chambered ones, and it doesn't call it that. But it's I mean, it feels like a Les Paul, but it's a nice weight. It's well under £10.
Yeah, that's right, and it feels more like a sort of heavy Strat sort of weight, I'd call it, rather than which if you think in your mind about picking up one of those slightly heftier Les Paul Customs, it feels like
I used to have one. Yeah. So heavy. Yeah, cut off the circulation in your legs. That was it.
So it's very friendly, isn't it? I mean, the lack of binding does give it a different aesthetic, but it is also quite friendly and ergonomic, and no sort of hard edges on it, which is quite nice. But you do get, for a touch of a little bit of distinction, you get some binding on the neck.
The binding, and I can't remember if some of the studios had dots on the fretboard, but this has got the proper sort of trapezoid things, and it's the slim taper neck, which is again a nice shape. We played the V, didn't we? And that was a nice shape, and this isn't dissimilar.
Yeah.
And I noticed also looking at the spec that these are aluminium.
Yeah.
They're lightweight aluminium, which is quite a premium
Yeah.
thing, isn't it? Really.
So what they've kind of done here is they've said, okay, yeah, this is it's not the lowest rung or the most, the most entry level. The Les Paul Studio Lite, I think, or Les Paul Modern Lite, sorry,
Right.
is the cheapest one they do, but that's got like a kind of a less deep body. It does feel a little bit different from a full on Les Paul. So this is, if you like, the first full fat Les Paul you can get in the US built range.
Yeah.
Price wise, so it's £1,599 is the sort of recommended price for it.
In a gig bag, isn't it?
And a gig bag, which is quite nice actually.
Nice gig bag,
It's got a sort of leather pattern kind of effect finish on it, and it feels really nice quality.
Yeah.
So there's quite an interesting debate to be had there. Now, we were playing the Jimi Hendrix Love Drops Flying V earlier on, which is at the highest end of the Epiphone range at £1,500, and that's got custom buckers and all sorts of nice hardware on it. But you don't get that name on the headstock. This one is a full-on Gibson. It's a full-on Les Paul. It's got the full depth body. It's got the carved maple top. It's got mahogany body, albeit weight relieved. And it's £100 more than that. So some people, if they're out to get a Gibson that's attainably priced, might have some sort of slightly complicated maths to do between that and the higher end Epiphones.
It's like the Venn diagram crosses over at this point, doesn't it?
Yeah, it depends what you want, really, doesn't it? Whether you regard the cachet and perhaps, perhaps the Gibsons might retain their value. Who knows, a little bit better.
I mean, I don't know if it's as true these days, but I know for me it's a bit like that's the headstock I've seen on the TV over and over again.
It still exerts its power, doesn't it? I mean, we're sort of a little bit, all of us, a bit helpless in the arms of heritage branding,
Yeah.
But, for what I think they've done something quite good here with Gibson. They've given you just a bit more than the Les Paul studios of old. And it's just sharpened the sort of offer a little bit, hasn't it?
Definitely. And what I noticed with plugging into the same amp that we played the V through, is this is a slightly brighter guitar, as you probably expect. I mean, I did say at the time, didn't I? I wonder if it's because I can hear the maple top, or am I talking absolute nonsense? But certainly in theory, that would be the case. And the Busbucker Pros may be brighter. Doesn't have the nylon saddles, but this is aluminium, they're lighter weight. And I've heard legends about that being lighter and airier sounding and a bit closer to the spec on a vintage Les Paul. I mean, I can see that somebody that knows what they're talking about, as you would hope, has been through and decided what the spec of these is going to be, and I think made some pretty good decisions.
Yeah, they've sort of breathed on it a bit rather than, messed with if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Robot tuners or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. So it's certainly none of those. That's from a different era, but it's a plain top, of course, so they don't give you a fancy maple, which they reserve for the stuff.
I don't mind that. I quite like that.
No, and I think, even among the custom shop Les Pauls they sell, there'll be those devotees of a plain top that will buy those because they like the vibe of it. The only thing I would say is that it's quite a strong cherry in the cherry sunburst. It's not the subtlest finish I've seen.
I must say, I really had to. I mean, playing it, I'm looking at it from the back where I don't have to deal with that. But having said that, some people might love it, but I must confess, there's no point in being dishonest about it. It's not my favourite finish. I'd probably look for a wine red one personally, but
but you've got your choice, as we said. We've got four finishes there. I think for me, the Les Paul Studios, natural colour will always be wine red. And do you remember the ones they used to make in the 90s with gold hardware and wine red?
A friend of mine had one. It was a great guitar, actually. Yeah. It was better than my Les Paul Custom.
Well, as we were saying just before we started filming, they have tried all sorts of things within the sort of Les Paul Studio framework over the years, including, as we mentioned, an older body, which was a bit of an aberration. They quickly
didn't that have you said the single coil in the middle?
Oh well, there was an M3 version, and that came out a bit later on. There was a period in the 90s, wasn't there, where they tried to give you the moon on a stick, and they put a sort of Strat style pickup in the middle so that it would give you
that other model that came out around that time, Nighthawk.
Yeah, Nighthawk. I had one of those, and I know there's a lot of people deride the Nighthawk, but do you know what? I really like that guitar, and I played it in function bands all through college. And
it probably did everything, didn't it?
It really did. It really did. It had a sort of mini humbucker at the neck. I don't think it was a Firebird style one. I think it was a mini humbucker.
Right.
Could be wrong on that.
They were actually different, weren't they? I got into this with someone recently. Yeah.
Well, funnily enough, the only thing that was interesting about the Nighthawks, I know we're digressing, but they had a Fender style scale length, 25.5 inch.
Right.
So I think that was Gibson trying to do a sort of, I don't know, Nashville Telly type thing where it gave you certainly had like more than 10 different pickup variations on it. Wow. And so Gibson have been sort of dancing around with this idea of something that's like a Les Paul, but, you know, offers you different things for a while. But the Les Paul Studio, just to come back to what we're actually looking at here, is, you know, I guess the idea is all of the things you need and none of the things you...
It's a Les Paul. It's a proper Les Paul, isn't it? And even though I must admit I'm not always the biggest fan, I like my guitars quite simple. I'm not always delighted to find that, oh right, it's got one of these on it. But they work really well. Somebody's really done their job properly there, haven't they? And that works. Yeah. And it's not something that even with the pot pulled up, sometimes you feel like you've got this massive thing sticking out. They're quite, they're obviously good quality, and I can see using that.
Yeah. So there we have it. I mean, it's almost a mark of how much of a Les Paul Studio this is, you know, and how it hasn't like completely upset the apple cart and done something wildly different. That is all there is to say about it. It's a nice sounding Les Paul. It's got the mahogany body, it's got the maple cap, it's weight relieved.
It feels like a Les Paul, it looks like a Les Paul, and it is one. And
it roars like a Les Paul, doesn't it? So So £1,599. Do check them out. 4 finishes in the new lineup and that binding. So if you're a fan of the original, do check it out. Thanks for watching and see you next time.